the first speaker was Bekir Algan, Ph.D., from Austin Yoga. I don't know what his Ph.D. is in, but he mentioned having designed some buildings in Austin and Dallas or something. So I assume it's in engineering or architecture. Right.
So this isn't like a Kent Hovind style Ph.D. that he got.
It's a real Ph.D. He is an engineer, so so it's probably an engineering degree. But it's a real Ph.D. that has nothing the fuck to do with the subject. Okay, but he wasn't brought in as an engineer. He was brought in as a yoga guy. So he starts his presentation by walking everybody through a little yogic hypnosis stunt, which really bothered me. I mean, he didn't say, I'm now going to hypnotize you all, but he did make everybody sit a certain way. Well, asked everybody to sit a certain way. And breathe a certain way, and clear their minds in a certain way, and basically prepare themselves to simply uncritically accept whatever the hell was about to come out of his fucking mouth.
Right.
Which was this. He started off almost immediately, like a few sentences into his talk. He was attacking the practice in science of verifying one another's research by repeating the experiments. He attacked that practice. You know how he attacked it?
How? Science shouldn't do that?
He attacked it by saying that people listening to the show won't be able to see the hand gestures, but he basically said, that makes it the almighty experiment, and he did this waving hand gesture as if scientists are glorifying experimentation beyond what it deserves. We're just talking about verifying that other scientists are not completely nuts. That's all we're talking about. This guy
making sure that their experimental protocols are appropriate. And
it really annoyed him that experimentation is considered important in science.
I'm not going to go into any of the buildings he's designed. Hell.
And then he started. He said, science doesn't really understand things. It just names them. And his example was water. Science doesn't really understand what water is. They call it H2O. And that is not an understanding of water.
Wow.
It's just a label. And now, having made the claim that all science does is label stuff and not actually understand it, he went on to try to exploit that as a weakness in science to be filled by spirituality. Because, of course, spiritually, you actually understand things.
So what was his spiritual understanding of water?
He didn't explain.
Right, he didn't have one.
He did make a
fucking liar.
He did make another. Yeah, no, it was just complete bullshit, hand waving, trying to pry a hole open in science so he can inject his big supernatural dick.
But he couldn't pry a hole open, so he made one up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it is true that science does come up with terms for things, sort of essential if you're going to fucking talk about them.
That's a hell of a lot more than that. Good God.
He made this other analogy, which I thought was a valid analogy to illustrate an issue where, just having a word for a thing is not enough. You do have to actually think about what that thing is, and that is the difference between soldiers and terrorists in the current war. He made a very valid point that, we call our troops soldiers because they have official uniforms, and then treat the enemy unofficial combatants, or whatever the hell they call them, differently just because they don't happen to have uniforms, and that's dumb. Perfectly valid point, nothing the fuck to do with science. Science is all about understanding what those actual differences are.
Yep.
Okay, so then he went on to say some more crazy shit. He said, if you're going to believe something, he quoted somebody who said something to the effect of, I don't have the exact quote, that the things worth believing, most worthy of belief, are those things that that transcend space and time. By which I figured out later what he meant was, and this is not necessarily crazy yet, things that are true at all places and at all times. Those would be universal truths.
Yeah, that's not transcending.
I know, but that's what he meant. He's a crazy yogic douchebag, so,
Idiot, right.
I'm trying to explain, what when he has anything like a valid point in the midst of all his bullshit, what that point was. Okay, so then he accused science of not transcending time, but only transcending space. Because what science... Hang on.
Right, go ahead.
I'm glad I didn't bring you with me, Dennis, because you'd have been laughing in the pews.
I would have frickin' died.
Because science's job is to find out things like, natural laws that are true everywhere throughout the universe.
Right.
Never mind the fact that right now there's actual, investigation into clues that might actually not be true. That in some parts of the universe the natural laws might be operating differently.
But those are experiments.
But not time, because its discoveries are always changing. You've heard this old saw about science, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Science is no good because its discoveries change all the time. And he pulled the figure 10 years out of his ass.
Oh, what? Everything changes in 10 years?
Well, see, now, probably you couldn't pin him down if you asked him whether he meant that everything changed. But he talked as if everything changed every 10 years.
Unlike religion, where if they're wrong once, they stay wrong forever.
Right.
Hang on. So he made this. Of course, I wanted to ask him, but it wasn't question and answer time yet.
Right.
I wanted to ask him, how long have we known there was a planet Venus? Is it still there? Has that changed? I mean, that's over a century. But that wasn't part of his bullshit argument.
Right.
So then he goes, ancient spiritual wisdom is good because it does transcend time. By which, you translate that to, it's always right.
It's dogma, yeah.
Always, yeah, right.
Oh, God.
So,
but you can't
now
tell that it's right.
Yeah. But somehow, while saying these two things, even though it's bullcrap, right?
Right.
He seems to be saying here that science is right everywhere, but only for a while, and spiritual wisdom is always right, but not right everywhere. He never said that.
Right.
If he had said that, he would have. If he said that spiritual wisdom only transcends time and not space, then he would have made concocted this relationship between science and religion that you could have worked with. But he didn't do that. He never listed any shortcomings of spiritual wisdom.
Right. He doesn't think there are any.
Therefore, once again, he's simply slamming science and propping up religion. So then he goes on. Yoga. He wanted to tell everybody why yoga was so good. Yoga is good. Here's why. Because
I like mine with strawberries.
Because the brain, the mind, is so complex and so busy and so active and so difficult to master. But your joints, like your shoulder joint, has only so many degrees of motion. So if you move your thoughts out of your brain and into your shoulder joint, then it simplifies all of your thoughts.
Obviously, some brains are more active than others.
I think he's moved all his thinking to his coccyx.
But it astonished me.
Thoughts are simplified, all right.
Yeah, I mean, that is a pure appeal to wanting, even taking the crazy yogic bullshit out of it, right? Because you don't actually have any neurons in your shoulder joint.
Your coccyx.
It's nothing but a pure appeal to people not wanting to have to think as much.
Right.
Right? So think down here in your shoulder joint where it's a lot simpler.